It's 8:15 in the evening and we're just kidding. I don't want to freak you guys out. So now, infants who hold their breath for 10 seconds or longer have sleep apnea. That's where they have trouble breathing. Again, you also have this little reference right here, so it helps to go through this as well. It is going to be on, again, it's available. Primarily, I try to make sure that everything is available. Because if I go through it, then we're going to be here forever. I don't want to keep you here forever. But again, also within that, individuals who are African American, also Alaskan Native children, are 4 to 6 times more likely to die from SIDS. Again, also you take into account even, say for example, individuals on the reservation. Why do you think that's pretty impactful? And this is the reason why. But one of the questions I want to ask is, why is it impactful for families of low socioeconomic circumstances? Why do you think why do you think the children are dying at a higher rate for individuals? And I literally.
That's where the drugs are.
That's where the drugs are. There you go.
The drugs are located. Yeah. It's like it's with the lower class. It's with us.
Okay.
And we have to make our way around it.
Okay.
And if the people want to use it, that's up to them. And if the people that don't want to use it have to make a way around it. You know? And then when they get uncomfortable, they'll just stand and watch at you, like go about your business, and it's the same. You want to tell them, go about your business too. Why are you looking at me? Go do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? So besides drug use, yes.
I think that it's because in a home that's like broken or whatever, or like a lower class standard,
Mm-hmm.
they're not provided with the necessities like a crib, and so that's why they co-sleep, and sometimes a person can just roll over the baby, and that's one of the issues with us, is that we're so tight in a house that we co-sleep with our kids.
Yeah.
Because we don't have, I mean, like, there's a lot of families that will stay with their parents, you know?
Yeah.
Or there's just, it's a generation house.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, I think that's why.
Okay. So we have drug use and we have limited space, and we've seen that. We've seen individuals where you have mother, grandparents living with cousins, sub-cousins, sub-sub-cousins, and they're all there. And so when that happens, it puts the child in initial risk. But what else? What other ideas do you see, or what other things do you also see?
The health.
The health?
The health of the child, like, if the baby was exposed to, just like we were talking
Yeah.
about, drugs, during gestational period, and,
Yeah.
and then like poverty,
So what I'm going to do is this week I'm going to post up a webinar that I want you to visit, and it's to differentiate in regards to meth. So a meth home, what things you can see. So I need to write down a note for myself. But one of the things I want you to look into that, because one, meth homes primarily, it's a huge risk when you walk into a meth home. You walk into a home, you notice different things. You notice the ventilation system is yellow. You notice where all the different, it's something about yellow. It's the drug itself. It's not just because it's yellow. It's not Homer Simpson. But it's one of those things where you'll see it. It's trying to escape the pores and everything else. But as that's happening, initially, even the flow. One of the things we also, I saw it the other day, but one of the things is even just the flow of the home. How many on a regular basis open all their doors and all their windows to air out the house? Some people are like, it's cold. Why would I want to do that? Oh my goodness, you're going to get sick if I open you don't get sick from opening the door or the window. You get sick from a virus. But a lot of times they don't air out that home, so they're all breathing in that same air over and over, and they're breathing over the baby. And it's all compacted.
Or they don't wash their hands too.
And they don't wash their hands too. I'm a big.
Yeah, they don't wash their hands too.
Yeah.
It's like wash your hands. You don't get sick if wash your hands.
Exactly.
Simple.
So if you notice, I always wear gloves because I don't want to shake your. I'm just. But one of the things you're always looking at is also maternal age. A lot of them are very young. A lot of individuals. When I work with IHS a lot, one of the first things that a lot of the individuals, the young individuals that would come in right when they find out they're having a baby, am I going to be put on WIC? That's their first question now. Teenagers. I just had a baby. I'm going to have a baby. Am I going to be on WIC? I was told that I'm going to be on WIC. Because initially they're looking at it in terms of what? It's a survival mechanism. We can look at it and say, wow, why didn't somebody teach you? But for them, what is it? It's a survival mechanism. They're looking in terms of, one, this is the best way I can survive. And then lower maternal education. A lot of times they're not being educated on all these different factors. They're not being educated on the fact that, one, it's pricey to have a baby. I mean, I've seen babies walk around and initially get infections because, one, they're walking around with what? Heavy diapers. And it's one of those things where I'm looking at like, that can cause a urinary tract infection. That can cause this, that can cause rash, that can actually lead to all these other things, and they're looking at me like, okay, you're being all bougie and everything else, and I'm like, I'm not being bougie, I'm literally trying to tell you something. And save your child. Yes, it's one of those things, and I'm like, and it just drives me nuts. I know, it's crazy. So bougie is when you're being, yeah, I think you guys can look at bougie.
Yeah.
Single marital status. Who wants to know what bougie is? Okay, bougie. Bougie is, I don't know if you guys ever taken French or studied sociology. So sociology, we were looking at French aristocrats. So again, they were of the bourgeois class. Again, these are individuals who are of the upper class and everything else, higher echelon. So now today's lingo is, oh my goodness, you look very bougie. It's a shorter version of bourgeois. So again, it's spelled B-O-U-J-E-E. It's ridiculous. And now you have SIDS, preterm babies. Then shorter intervals. This is one of the big things I was telling you about. There was individuals that I would work with domestic violence and also with teen dating violence. A lot of times the boyfriend would say, hey, I don't want you ending up with any other girl or any other guy. So I'm going to keep getting you pregnant over and over. And I'm thinking, wow, you need to leave this relationship, but I love him. I said, oh my goodness. And then less prenatal care. I'm pretty sure we've all heard those. So now, why does it happen more? And I've already asked that question, so we'll move on. So now, when they're smoking at home, this is where you can look at that. What can happen to your baby when you smoke? Again, small baby, you're looking at all the different aspects. Learning delays, blocks breathing, deprives of the oxygen aspect. And again, this also goes to the same thing again, your cortex. Again, this also messes with the child's initial aspect of their brain comprehension. But again, the cortex maintains a sleep again, but one of the things is as they're continuing, the fluctuation begins to happen if the person is smoking. So then it causes irregular heartbeats. Boom, 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 everything else. So now, one of the unique things I like about pacifiers is the fact that it actually prevents SIDS. Because one, when they roll over, if that thing is sticking out, a lot of times the baby feels uncomfortable, so it'll roll back over again. And then it's trying to lay on its stomach, and then it roll back over again. And it just keeps doing that every time because the pacifier's there and loves the pacifier and everything else. So now this one. And again, there's also individuals who are looking from the outlook of, I would never have my child continue to have a pacifier all the way through because, again, the development of the teeth and everything else. But again, you also look at different aspects. Again, it's one of those things where you're trying to play a balance game. Again, you're also looking at when a baby is put in the bed with a fan. Again, you're looking at circulation. Circulation, continuous circulation. You're trying to make sure that they can breathe. So now, after neonatal period, death due to injuries are the third leading cause of death, as well as injury in regards to homicide. This is where a mother says, nope, I don't want the baby. Or if they're in a domestic violence situation. And that's one of the things I'm always looking at is, if there is domestic violence, a lot of times individuals are from the outlook of, I am staying with this individual for the sake of my kids. And I'm always from the other outlook of, yes, but your child's learning these behaviors and thinks it's okay for you to do these different things. But in addition to that, if this person were to do anything to you, it puts now your baby at risk. So now, schemes. According to Piaget, so we're going to look through schemes. So again, you're looking at the incoming data, so that one, they're able to change and alter all this new information. So the sensory motor stage. So this stage, we're looking at the senses. So if you notice the baby, what do they usually do? They're always putting everything in their mouth. And you're just like, why? Again, they're testing out everything. They're biting on everything. They're like, ah. And you see those little kids who will go up and, have you ever seen little babies? They'll be eating hot Cheetos and they'll drop it on the floor and they'll pick it back up and eat it and you're like, oh. And it's so interesting because again, parents will just look at them and go, I survived. It boggles my mind at times. Probably because I'm being bougie. So now this is where you're looking at the simple reflexes. So again, primarily looking at the area of, again, these are all there. You're looking at the I'm hungry stage, you're looking at the aspect of I'm really hungry, I'm looking at the area of late cues, call me, then feed me. This is where babies literally, and you're like, but you're looking at the area of the rooting reflex. So this is where it's reflexive. You're saying, okay, what things can I do to make sure that one, there's a presence of a nipple, and therefore they're going to find that nipple. And that's what I was talking about, was one, if you look here, and I don't have that there, where male individuals can also wear similar to an initial bralette, but initially within that they'll also have the milk there, so it primarily ensures that the baby is also getting the nutrients of the mother's milk. And I think one of the things is, I've actually seen this here and there. I've seen it in Farmington, I've seen it here and there, where men have worn it and people are like, that's a father. But notice the gender outlooks. Notice the differentiation. If a mother were to do that, notice how it's like, oh, good night, why can't you cover up? But when a dad does it, they're like, that's a father. Man, just look at that guy. That's a father of the year. And you're just like, really? It's it's interesting how when you look at gender studies, you look at all these different uniquenesses. So now we have circular reactions. So a reaction which is repetitive. And that's where we have this. So it begins to repeat pleasurable activities. That's where you have and you're like, stop it. And you hear them, and they're just drooling everywhere, and you're like, why are you doing that? Again, they're learning. Because now they have tertiary stage and they have the secondary. There's a volume on here? Sorry, I'm testing on this. So with the primary stage, the circular stage, you're looking at conscious voluntary movement. So this is where they're actually actively doing things. They're saying, okay, what things can I do? I'm going to test it out. I want to test it out. That's where the baby is initially saying, okay, I'm going to repeat these different things. Thumb in the mouth, kind of plucking, everything else. Again, the baby feels comfort with that. Some individuals, as they're going along, they still continue to feel comfort with that. I've seen grown adults still feel comfortable with that. It's unique. Now you have secondary circular reactions. The infant will initially go outside itself for stimulation. So now that's where you have a baby now looking at an external element. That's where they're saying, okay, this is a toy. It's a rattle. I'm going to shake it. My son, one of the things is, when he was very small, he had one of those little tiny, I think they were like a lawnmower. And so for him, he was tiny, but he would. It's like, oh wow, why did I get this for you? Again, he liked it. He like, and it's like, it's okay. He's gonna go through this for the 4 through 8 months. I remember that. There's a time frame. And that's where you have the intentional repeating action. So between 8 and 12 months, the infant will begin coordinated secondary. Again, that's where it's coordinated. It's getting better at it. That's where it's not just kind of throwing things anymore. It's kind of shh, 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 shh. That's where you have the kid with the death grip on something, and you're like, please give me it. Please. I'll trade you. Kid doesn't know what trade is. And now you have tertiary. So this is where they're doing the trial and error. They're doing different things. They're trying out different things. They're saying, okay, if I cry now, will it get parents' reaction? When I drop this, what's going to happen to mom? What's going to happen to dad? Are they going to get mad? I don't care. I'm going to try it again. And you're like, wow. And we see that. We see kids who are sitting in that little, what are they called? Not strollers. High chair. Yes, thank you. So as they're sitting in the high chair, what do they usually do? You give them food. What are they going to do? Are they going to eat that food? No, they just whoosh. And they'll pick up one little tiny Cheerio. And you're like, why? So then you think you're smarter. You get a smaller batch. You give it to them. Like, why? And they'll get one Cheerio. And you're like, oh, 12 to 18 months, that's it. So now this is where the internalization comes in. 18 to 24 months, they begin to learn language. That's where it's simplistic language. So that's where you have the aspect of, so if you notice this baby, they'll see something, they'll put something in front of it, baby doesn't even realize the fact that it's not even there anymore. Versus, and this is only 4 months, versus at 9 months, now when something's taken away, they're looking at in terms of one, this has been taken away from me, I liked it, and I'm going to search for it. I'm going to find it. That's where you start playing hide and seek. Their concept is starting to, they're understanding what is object permanence. So now they have symbols. That's the reason why when they're a baby, you go by, and they're just like, but as they get older, they're kind of like, and they're waving. And you're like, oh, these are symbols. And they're starting to use their hands. And you're like, well, they understand goodbye. They just waved at me goodbye. And you're like, and I'm over on this, like, no, they didn't wave at you goodbye. They're just testing out symbols. They don't even know what that means. It's like, ah. I just let them have it. I'm like, you're precious. And that's to the parents, literally. So now this is where language begins to happen. Why is it off? So now we have phonemes. So there are 44 in the English language, depending on where you live. So a morpheme is the smallest unit of meaning. So a carport has 2 morphemes. Car, port. If you have a word car, another another morpheme is ER. So the best way I can do it, or this way I can look at it is, say for example, run. And then ing is another morpheme, smallest form. So run, you add that's one morpheme, then you add ing, it becomes run-ing, now it becomes an action word. So that's one of the things you're also looking at. You're looking and say, okay, they're starting to put together language. All of this is happening. A lot of times, that's the reason why I'm always a big advocate of teaching children languages at a young age. Because for my son, I started teaching him Arabic. Because at one time, that's what I was studying. I was studying Arabic, and I also teach in Spanish, because at one time, that's what I was learning. Because one, I want him to know as many languages as possible. Why? I don't know. I might be doing some piecework in Mexico, and yeah, but I don't want to get stuck in Mexico. You don't want to get stuck. Like say for example, roper. It has two morphemes. Notice how rope is one, and then ER is applied to it. Roper. Now it becomes an additional word. So language sequence. So now when you look at the sequence of language, you have pre-linguistic speech. You have the cooing and the babbling, and then it goes into the telegraphic speech, and you're looking at all these different aspects as they're going along. Is that in your book?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Because some of it I use from the book, some of it I'm just adding new stuff and other stuff. So that's the reason why I like making PowerPoint. So now again, you have fast mapping. So children begin to learn language quite rapidly as they're going along. That's the reason why, I don't know if you've ever remember your childhood and your parents tell you, oh yeah, you know what, you spoke really good Navajo when you were a child. And you're looking like, I don't even speak Navajo today. Again, that happens. Because one, it's fast mapping, it's imprinting. But again, if you don't utilize it, what happens is, it gets shushed out. It gets taken over by other aspects. You're moving along, you're moving along, you're moving along. Again, one of the things is you're moving along, you also have the aspect of joint attention. And this is where joint attention, when you're looking at that, it becomes a key factor for, say for example, a child who has autism spectrum. Because one of the things is, the parent is trying to show them, say, this is what this is, and this is what this is. And the child's just looking at it like, sees a toy, has no affect towards the parent, does not see the parent as a parent, just simply sees them as a tool. So then says, okay, I saw that thing move this toy over here. I'm going to grab the parent's hand, put it over there. They grabbed it, put it over here, put it over here. Begins to create that disjointed aspect. So again, that's one of the things you're always looking at. That's one of the things you're always studying to account. So now, Chomsky. Noam Chomsky, one of the big things he's looking at was language acquisition. His theoretical aspect was, one, there is a key structure in your brain that will initially store information in regards to languages. So now it begins to analyze the language they hear to figure out its rules. That's known as nativism. Not you as a native, but nativism. Because one of the things is you're looking at saying, okay, I hear a language, and I'm going to figure out the rules and the structure. Because say, for example, if you speak Navajo, how do you speak in Navajo? Is it, like say, for example, I am going to go to Chinle right now. So if you're going to tell me that you're going to go to Chinle right now, how would you say it? You say it backwards, right? So then your mind says, okay, I have to switch everything. I have to figure out what are the key aspects, and within that I'm going to figure out the rules. So now if you look at it, passively viewing words, where does it light up at? What was I talking about? What area of the brain? The occipital lobe, right? And now listening to words, what was in this region? The temporal lobe. And now you have speaking words. What is still happening? It's happening where? Part of the temporal lobe, right? And then generating verbs. You have the Broca's area and the Wernicke's area. So that's where this is going to come into play. So Broca's area is primarily looked at the area of coherent speech. It wants to be coherent. It has to make sense. Those portions of the brain will light up. In addition to that, you have Wernicke's area, which is involved in speech processing and understanding language. So that's one of the things you're saying, okay, I understand English. How did I get to that point? Now, how can I implement that when I'm learning a new language? It's breaking it all up into patterns. That's the reason why we look at tones. Say, for example, when we utilize our language, we also look at the aspect of the nasal, the glottal stops, all these different things so that we make sure that it makes sense and we're not cussing somebody out. So now, first attempts to communicate are at 10 months. Within that first birthday, you're able to have an actual conversation with an adult. In addition to that, the language skills improves and the vocabulary begins to grow. That's where a child begins to learn new words as they're going along. And then that's where they begin to differentiate. They begin to understand grammatical aspects, and that's where I was talking about there, and there. But again, I still see this with also college writing, there, and there. It's okay. But as you're going along, when comforting grammar Nazi, I always say softly, there, they are. And that's where you have simplified language. That's where they're kind of just talking in simplistic terms. All dry, hit ball, jump. I run. Notice they're not saying I ran. It's more along the I just run. I run. I fall. I hurt. Stomach hurt. They're not saying, you know what, I had a premonition about the fact that I was going to fall, and within that I stopped myself and everything else, and you're like, wow. Again, some kids, if they ever do that, that'd be a miracle. I played with toy. I go to the store.